Hi everybody, welcome back to Taji's World of Books and welcome to another book series recommendation video. Hey guys, so welcome back. So I thought that what I would do is film a clip of this because I want to make sure that I got the information to you hot off the press. And this is a pretty long series. And sometimes when I wait and delay it, I don't remember all the details in the way that I want to remember. And this is a pretty interwoven, connected series. And so I wanted to make sure that I got it to you as accurately as possible. So the series that I'm talking about is the Sinners on Stage series. And I am going to review the first 4 books today, and then I'll give you the last remaining books in the next clip, and we'll put it all together and you get a whole thing. Okay, so the first book of the series is Backstage Pass, and it is an introduction to all of the characters in this series. And it starts off with Myrna Evans, and Myrna is at a conference, and she is a psychologist. She's a research psychologist, but she studies sexual behavior, and she's like, you know, she's not like a sex therapist, but she studies like more like sexual behavior and sexual deviance and different things like that. Okay, so she's on a conference, and she's just finished with her day of lectures, and she's put on a lecture, and she's finished with that, and she's getting ready to head back to her room. And as she walks by, she sees the guys from Sinner on tour, or Sinners, the band Sinners, are in the lounge hanging out, drinking, partying, and she's watching them, and she's just enamored by them. And for whatever reason, she decides to go and sit down and talk to them. And these guys are a riot. It's like made up of like several different guys. Like Ced is like the lead singer, and Brian Sinclair is the guitarist. The bassist is Jace, and the drummer is, I believe, Eric, I believe, is the bassist. And then there are other sundry characters like the roadies and the managers and those kind of things. And these guys are sitting in that lounge and drunk as skunks and just partying it up and are just a riot. And so the minute that they invite her in, she's prim and proper, and she's dressed in a suit and a pencil skirt. And they're like, who is this highfalutin chick that she's hot as all get out, and every single member of the band just wants her. And so she sits down with them, and Ced starts to flirt with her, and Eric is flirting like crazy, and Jace is flirting. Oh, and there's also Tyler, or there's also another dude named Tyler or whatever. And so they're all just flirting with her. And so, but the one she's interested in is Brian Sinclair. But Brian is so drunk that he has to run to the restroom, and he like just vomits everywhere. He's just a hot mess. So make a long story short, she makes it plain that she's interested in Brian. And basically it's their story, but you're also learning about all the other characters and all of their other kinks and mental health issues and stuff that they're struggling with as well. And also, Myrna has a past. She was married in the past, and she has a violent, abusive husband. And so we start to see how things evolve because because of the things that her violent, abusive husband did, she can't engage in relationships in quite the same way that Brian can. This is also an age gap in that Myrna is about 7 to 9 years older than Brian. And so it is fantastic. So it's a rock star romance. It's a age gap romance. And it also has a little bit of a menage quality to it as well. It is fun, and I loved it. It's fast paced. It's super interesting and entertaining. I gave it a 4 out of 5 star. And while it's super sexy, like for me, it's like a little bit like it goes into kind of like she's doing it more for this, like the sexy stuff is like it's happening more to put it on page as opposed to it's occurring organically. I don't know how to describe that really well. Like it's there, but you just feel like, I don't know, like it wasn't. And I guess again, I'm like my barometer is Tiffany Rice. Like Tiffany Rice writes it, and you're just like, damn, like it is just all there. And then you read this and you go like, it just, the writing doesn't measure up. It's not quite as good, but for what it is, it's okay. So I gave it like, I'll give it a 4 and a 3 spice and a 3 angst. So then the next book in the series is Rock Hard, and Rock Hard is about Jessica and Ced. And so Jessica and Ced is a second chance romance. Ced is the lead guitarist from the band, and it is their story. And I didn't like this as much because Jessica is immature and she is whiny, and they're either, in this book, they're either fucking or fighting. There is no in between. Sed is an asshole. Sed says horrible, horrific things that Jessica gets angry and pissed off about. But Sed believes that he can motivate people by pissing people off. So his strategies are all messed up. And like the dynamic is just like, it's like artificial angst. It's just bullshit. Like either you want to be together or you don't. And she's like, you're going to treat me as an equal and you're going to see me as like whatever. But she's not taking care of herself. Like she's not handling business. She's making faux pas all over the place. He is just a jackass, like across the board. And so you just are like, what are you guys doing? Like either just figure it out and figure out that you're going to take him for who he is, which is a jackass, but he has great qualities and he tries to be a good guy, but he says asshole-ish things. Or you're going to say like, no, I'm not doing it and I'm out. But the back and forth is giving me fucking whiplash. Like, so that's how I felt about this. So having said that, I gave it a 4, but in hindsight, I probably should have given it a 3.75 because it was just annoying as all hell. Now there is an ongoing backstory. The thing that I like about these books is that, you've got the main core characters and we see them all in the background. You have to read these books in order because there is a plot and a story unfolding. There are some things that happen in this book to Trey, and that's the other member that happened to Trey that evolved into the other stories that we need to pay attention to. There's some things that happen to Sed in this book that evolve in the other books that we need to pay attention to. Likewise, we also are seeing Brian and Myrna in these books as well, and their story is developing as well. So it is building into a crescendo, to an ultimate sort of, an ultimate storyline or plot development. But this was not my favorite because they just annoyed me to no end. Having said that, the next story, the next book of the story is Aggie. This is Aggie's story with Jace. And so I like this book the most because we've been hearing about Jace and we've been seeing Jace's disappearing acts and we've been wanting to know what's happening with Jace. And we know that Jace is into some kinky stuff and he's got a suitcase of apparatus from like ball gags and clamps and, cuffs and all kinds of stuff. And then we hear about Mistress Aggie, who is a dominatrix. And so this again is utilizing BDSM to heal someone from past trauma. We know that Jace has a past history. We know that Jace feels like he does not belong in the group. And we've been hearing about another group member that Jace replaced named John because John had a substance abuse and an addiction issue. And so we see that coming out as well. Now, like I said, every book builds on the previous story. So we're seeing some things happen with previous band members. We're dealing with some substance abuse issues. We're dealing with trauma. We're dealing with brain TBR issues. There's a lot of things going on in these particular books that, make them very, very interesting. This was my favorite book in the series so far because there are some really broken characters that needed to work through some things and finding belonging and finding acceptance and finding, that your past doesn't have to dictate who you become in the future and that you have to find your own voice and you have to forge your own path. And so I loved it for that reason. And so I was going to give it a 5, but really, again, the writing is a solid 4 and it is a 4 in terms of spice because it is pretty spicy, and angst, it's a 3. So it delivers, it's good, and I enjoyed it the most of everything. And then this book currently, and I'll go ahead and give you a little bit of a synopsis and then I'll, because I'm in the middle of it right now. And this is Eric's story, and we've been following Eric for quite some time and his story with Rebecca. And Eric is always sort of, he likes to watch and he is a voyeur and he wants to watch other couples have sex. And we're starting to understand why that's happening. Trey is a big part in this book as well. And Rebecca is a sound coordinator. She is taking the place of her brother Dave, and Dave has been in all of the previous books, and I'm not going to say why she takes his place because it'll kind of spoil it, but she takes his place, and she is enamored by Trey, and Trey is interested, but not really interested, but Eric is enamored by her. And so it is the evolution of where things evolve from there. We're starting to hear a lot about Eric and Eric's past and why Eric is the way that he is. And so far it is really good. I'm really enjoying it, but we'll have to hop over to the next clip to hear a little bit more about why Eric is doing what he's doing and overall what I thought of this book. So I'll see you over there. Hi, so I'm back to talk about the second half of the books in the Sinners on Tour series, and I'm also going to include Exodus End as well, because it really is a continuation of this story, and so I just think it just all goes together really nicely. And so in the last clip, I was telling you that I was reading Wicked Beat, and this is Eric and Rebecca's story, Eric Sticks, and I absolutely love their story because these two have ADHD basically. They're all over the place. They're very creative types. They're just doing life, jumping from pillar to post, and they are a perfect combination for each other. Their story is very fun. They're very fun-loving and easy. I like that she added an heavier element to the story with Rebecca's mother, because Rebecca's mother is dealing with some mental health issues and some evangelical religious beliefs. I also love that there was a very cool spin in here with Trey, and it's the introduction of Trey's story. And we've known for quite a while that Trey has been hung up on Brian. And Brian, now that Brian has found Myrna, that is not a possibility for Trey. And so Trey then steps into this story in a very interesting twist. And there's an ex that comes into play, Rebecca's ex, Isaac, whom she broke up with, and now Eric is, having to contend with that. And so it's just really a fun story. And so all these books are a solid 4. I love them all. I thought they all were really good. This is no different. This is a little bit more angsty because there's a little bit more like, oh, is it going to work out? How's it going to happen? What's going to go down? But it goes down in a very cool way. And so I loved Wicked Beat. So then the next story, which I absolutely loved, and I would probably say that this is my favorite book in the series, and that is Double Time. And this is Trey's story. And it's just so good. Obviously, because Trey is bisexual, and he is 100% bisexual, no one dude or one female is going to do it for him. And so we have to see, and I'm not going to tell you who the love interests are in this particular story, but it is done so well. And I love the angst that comes up and trying to sort through and trying to figure it out and trying to understand if a menage is possible and how that's going to work and what that's going to look like. And I'm going to say that the end of their story isn't happening here. The end of their story happens over in Exodus End, and that's why I think it's a continuation. So literally for me, this is really the end of this is the last book in the Sinners on Tour, because this book, Sinners at the Altar, is really an epilogue to all of the previous books. So in essence, in here, you have Appetite for Seduction, Sweet Love of Mine, Patience, and November Rain. And it literally is Brian and Myrna's story. It is Sed and his love interest story. And Patience is Jace and Aggie's story, and then November Rain. And so and I think it's the way it goes, but it's the epilogue literally to all the books that we've read previously. It's all of their stories that are bound up here. So this is like really the last full length. So for me, the way that it goes, and you have to read this for sure, and you probably should read it at the end where it goes, but if you look on Goodreads, it'll tell you how to read it. So you probably should read it at the end of all this. Like, you technically could read each person's book and at the end of their book pick this up and read their chapter on that. It could, but there are a little bit of spoilers in there for other people's stories, so I would really recommend that you wait. Okay, so then this is the actual final story in the Sinners on Tour, and I'm gonna go a little bit out of order and say that this is where their story picks up in Outsider. And it's literally the continuation of their story. This should be a duet because these two are married together. Now, it's put in this order. There's another book in between. It's put in this order because there's other things that have to happen and have to take place in order for them to get to where they are here. But they are put here, and I'm going to come back to this in a minute. But these two are married together. Okay. So then the next book in the sort of spin-off series is Insider. And this is from Sinners on Tour. And literally for me, it is just a continuation because now Exodus N, which is Dare's band, and Dare is the brother for Trey. This is his band, but they are touring together. So Sinners on Tour, Sinners and Exodus N are touring together. And so literally it's a continuation. And so these things are really meant to be read together. And so in this book, Insider, this is Tony. And Tony Nichols is a journalist. And she has been commissioned to write a book about Exodus N, like a coffee table book about Exodus N. And so she has gone on tour with them and she was riding on the bus with them. And like I said, they're on tour with Sinners. And so this is Exodus N, and she's traveling with them, and she gets entangled with Logan Schmidt. And Logan is known to be a player, and he's an adrenaline junkie, and he's a really cool guy, and they get connected. And some really messed up things happen in this book, and this is it's a rock star romance. It's a virgin heroine, and it is a beautiful story. It is a really cool story. It's really frustrating in many ways, and you can kind of clock what's going to happen in this book, but it's so good. I love Tony and Logan together. You really root for them. You want to see them get it figured out. Logan is a perpetual playboy. He is the kind of guy that's like, I'm never going to commit. I'm never going to settle down. But then he is very super possessive of Tony and is like, you know, really committed to her in many, many ways. But at the same time, he's like, I'm not committed to her and I'm not her boyfriend and we're just friends. And so it just is a really good story and I absolutely loved it. And that's Insider. And like I said, in Outsider, there's some things that happen in Insider that force Reagan and Trey and their significant other to face some issues that should have been faced a long time ago. I really got frustrated with Reagan in this book because I felt like Reagan was being selfish in many ways and thinking about what was good for her and not thinking about what was good for Trey and not thinking about what was good for their other partner. And so it is really like a come to Jesus moment, but it's also about love prevailing, and it brought tears to my eyes, and I really loved it. It was fantastic. And then the final book in the series is Exodus N's drummer, Steve. And he is coming in contact with another band that comes into the story named Rue. And it is really well done. And again, it's another like perpetual playboy that is learning to settle down and learning to be honest with himself about how he's feeling about someone. There is also an ongoing plot about Exodus N's manager and what the manager is doing, Sam, behind the scenes, and whether he can be trusted or not. So there's an ongoing plot that's developing, and it is very much a tangled web we weave. But again, it's fascinating. It's fast paced. I'm absolutely loving it. You know, Olivia has not written in this. After this particular book, she has not written in this series. I really thought that Dare's book was going to be coming up next, but we still have to get Dare's book. We've got to get Max's book. There's a lot more areas that she can particularly write in that she hasn't written in, but we will see what she does with this, but it's really a good series. I was not expecting to love these characters as much as I did, and they are in my heart, embedded deep within my heart. Certain characters like Logan, Dare, for sure, Eric, Jace, like I love them all. I love them all. My least favorite characters are Sed and what was Sed's significant other, Jessica. Sed and Jessica. I didn't care for them because it was either screwing or arguing, and I was like, there gotta be some in between. We can't be all passionate all the time. So I just didn't care for them as much. But these books are fantastic. So if you like rock star romances, if you like spicy, steamy, a little bit of BDSM thrown in there, and a lot of sex, then you are absolutely gonna love these books, and I highly recommend that you check them out. They're a solid 4 out of 5. The spice rating is a solid 4, and the angst is a solid 3. I think you're really going to appreciate them. So check them out. And if you have more recommendations for me, put them in the comments below. You know that I always add them to my TBR. And at this point, I'm going to ask you guys to do all the things. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, because it really helps me out. And come back and see me in my next video. Okay, you guys, thank you so much for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you in my next video.